Looks like we're going live. Let me just give me 1 second to just confirm that. Um, yeah. Hi. If you're tuning in on Facebook Live, thanks for watching today's Tenant Thursday video. Um, it's a special segment today. Usually we cover a lot of legal kind of policies and topics, but today we're going to talk about the supportive services aspect of LCBH. Um, So today we'll be discussing what is court-based emergency rental assistance, or otherwise known as CERA. And through that discussion, we're going to talk about kind of the origin of the fund, how it came to be, who is eligible for CERA, how one can apply, and what the fund is. My name is Alexis Cobedo, and I am the Communication and Events Coordinator here at the Lawyers Committee for Better Housing. With me today, we have Jude Gonzalez, Director of Supportive Services here at LCBH, and Lynette Barnes, Emergency Fund Senior Program Manager at All Chicago. Um, so before we get into CERA and kind of all the specifics, Lynette, how was the fund created? I know it comes from state homelessness prevention funds, but how did that fund come to be?
So it's got quite a bit of a history in terms of how things move fast paced now, but it came out of a need around like 1993. Homeless prevention services were pretty much run through nonprofit organizations like Catholic Charities and the Salvation Army, Travelers Aid, Immigrant Aid, things like that. And so as time kind of went on, they saw that there was an increasing need for more homeless prevention services and things that led up to homelessness, like, need for drug treatment, alcohol abuse, counseling, childcare, all of those types of things. So I believe it was around 1997 that the Illinois Department of Human Services was formed, and they started a type of pilot program, and it morphed into, I think they started off with like $20,000, $200,000 for homeless services, to help individuals that were either homeless or in imminent risk of homelessness. And they started a pilot program, I believe it was, with the Office of Children and Family Services. So initially, the state program was not even to help residents of Chicago. It was all outside of Chicago. But then they started to work with the continuum of care. So those are community-based organization, nonprofits, religious groups, all of these groups to try to answer some of the questions and stave off homelessness. And the program kind of morphed from there to where the continuum was given like a little over $2 million to start another program specifically for homeless prevention services. In 2000, around 2007, 2008, because most of our programs are on a programmatic year and not a calendar year. So we usually start in July. All Chicago got involved. We were picked by the Chicago Continuum of Care to administer the state homeless prevention funds. And so here we are, we are the lead agency. So what that basically means is that we partner with different organizations that actually serve the clients directly. So if someone goes to the Lawyers Committee for Better Housing and they are in imminent danger of eviction or being homeless, they will in turn do the application, do the assessment, determine what they need, work with the landlord, and they submit an application via our database, which is HMIS, Homeless Management Information System. We will review it at All Chicago and pay the vendor or landlord directly. And hopefully that will prevent that household from becoming homeless or evicted.
Gotcha. And so, Jude, now that we have the background on the state homeless prevention funds, what is the court-based emergency rental assistance? Is that kind of one of the programs or that the fund funds?
It is. So, we work hand in hand with All Chicago and the Continuum of Care. And, Lynette and I were, or are a part of a working group that was addressing diversion as a strategy to be used initially in the shelters, but we were talking about eviction diversion, and Lynette was a fantastic ally and champion of helping us create a pilot program. So CERA, or court-based emergency rental assistance, is really unique to LCBH, and it's unique to LCBH because we do have access to attorneys, right? So in the best tradition that Lynette is talking about, we also morphed this into something that we hoped is more comprehensive, meaning we can provide the funds, but we also have then attorneys that can, if you will, button up these cases, right? Because if someone can get money to pay their arrears that they owe, it doesn't mean that the filing is all of a sudden vanished, right? And that's a formal procedure that needs to be initiated and seen to completion by an attorney. And that's what our attorneys can do, right? They can go in, tie it up, so that when that person decides to leave their, they've lived out their lease there, we've been able to pay off what they owe, they don't find later on that they have an eviction following them. That's what can be detrimental, and that's what we can do to hopefully keep them in a healthier place as a household going forward.
Got it. And so is everyone eligible for CERA, or is there like specific requirements someone has to meet to apply to LCBH's specific program?
Well, there are eligibility requirements, and they run concurrent with what any agency that is a partner agency with the state homelessness prevention funds. And again, we are one of 10. Is that right, Lynette? 10
Yes.
agencies that are really dispersed around the city, so that pre-COVID, folks might go be referred to someplace and find someplace that's close to them to get to. Now, we exist in the loop, so it was assumed that lots of people could come to us via public transportation. And so they need to have experienced a short-term crisis, economic crisis, and there are a list of things that might qualify for that. And they need to have a landlord who's willing to participate, which is to say, willing to accept the money to pay off this arrears and allow them to stay, and live out the rest of their lease. And then they must be able to show that they are able to move forward after this. And this is really a stopgap measure, so that they're able to, with our help, fill that gap and then move on, right?
Yep.
That's in a nutshell. But Lynette can tell you more. She, again, is a senior fund manager, and so she knows all the ins and outs. And if there were more specific questions that people had, she would be the person who would know that.
Got it. And so one question that I have seen asked in time again within the live stream, and I think this would be more towards Lynette. Is it only for like Chicago residents who can apply to the state homeless prevention funds, or like say I've had some people ask about they live in Cicero, they live in Berwyn. Is there any like organizations in those areas, or does everyone have to be a Chicago resident?
Well, like I said at the beginning, the Illinois Department of Human Services manages, or they provide the funding to all of the continuums across Illinois. So we manage the funding for the Chicago Continuum of Care. But there are continuums of care downstate. I think there are 20 in Illinois. So they could either go online and look up homeless prevention services online to see what continuum would serve their area. Each of us, obviously Chicago is the largest because we have the largest population, but a lot of the other continuums are also modeled after our program and after the state regulations and policies. So they can get assistance, but if they live outside of Chicago, they would have to go to one of those continuums to get assistance.
Can I say something about that, Alex? I know you
Sure.
want to ask another question, but this is what I found, that there are lots of different continuums and they are governed a little bit differently, right? They are sort of allowed to manage in the way that they would like. And we're lucky enough, and this is how I met Lynette, to really ask for the input of direct service providers and administrators and managers at all levels. So it's why we were lucky enough to be able to pilot something, and then have it become the case that we were a partner agency, because we hadn't been prior to last year. And so it's a good thing they're dynamic governance agencies, and we find that Chicago's is particularly responsive to the needs of direct service people who are telling them about like what they're seeing when clients come to them.
Definitely. Yeah, and I just want to add that I'll go ahead, if you're watching on Facebook, I'll look for those links, and I'll put them into the comment section probably after the live stream, so that you don't have to kind of search around and they're all kind of in this one to go place. And Jude, so going back to CERA, you spoke on the eligibility and the specific requirements. I'm assuming that there's an application process. How would that application look like if I'm applying to be a CERA recipient?
Yeah. So much like the continuum of care, where, you know, any door that you go through will get you to this plethora of services, we're hoping that, at least as we're all sheltered in place, that we can start to use Rentervention, which is LCBH's chatbot, that people would engage at the website and start to fill out some information, and that chatbot would take you through a series of filters that would hopefully get to the place where you are getting your needs addressed. And some people will be clearly looking for legal representation, and other people will be looking for rental assistance, right? If we say at the outset that these are the things that we offer, and the chatbot asks you a series of questions, it should filter down to us, right? We also do get direct referrals as a partner agency from 311 or the Homelessness Prevention Call Center, with people who have been screened or at least attended to there, and then farmed out or referred to any of the 10 partner agencies who might be able to serve them best. So that's how people get to a place where we fill out an application and start to do the screening and the intake and all the other things that we need for tracking and monitoring and reporting, and of course submitting for approval.
Got it. And I do want to add, if you're watching, I did just put the link to rentervention.com into the comment section on the video. So if you have any immediate concerns, please go to rentervention.com. That's the best way to get a hold of us. And I see the next question here would be, has this changed now that we're living in a time of COVID and the pandemic? Is it still the same? Do we still have to, do clients would still go through intervention, or has it changed slightly?
I think Lynette can probably speak to that, because it has changed. And again, as a partner agency, we take direction from All Chicago about like what criteria maybe has changed. And of course, we're all doing things a little bit differently given that we're working remotely.
Yeah. So the state has been really, really helpful and lenient in allowing us the flexibility to try to kind of incorporate as much eligibility determination based on COVID-19. So where people had to show previously that they had means to pay forward if the assistance was given, given that people didn't know and still don't know in many cases when they're going to return to work, they kind of relaxed that requirement. So if someone was impacted by COVID-19 and have loss of employment, they would just have to show that they were impacted by COVID-19, and they could get up to 6 months of rent arrears from the, maybe like from March and then going forward. So that was huge. And to my understanding, they're going to allow us to continue that going forward, because we're still kind of in the middle of this pandemic. So that's really great for a lot of households that are struggling. And now with the unemployment uncertainties, I'm certain that, you know, we will be getting a lot of referrals based on not knowing how they're going to be able to pay rent, utilities going forward. We have been given the okay that we will be awarded 3.1 million for the regular state homeless prevention program that we hope to be able to start taking referrals again by mid to end of August. Well, we're almost at August, but by the end of August at the latest, that we'll be able to start taking referrals for that. And I wanted to mention that the state notified us a couple of weeks ago that we would be getting funds from the CERS Act, not the CARES Act, but the CERS, CURES Act. And I think the Department of Health and somebody else made a determination that based on hardest hit areas in Chicago, that certain zip codes that were the hardest hits will be eligible. And they gave us another 2.5 million to administer that program. So the eligibility criteria for that is similar to the state, but the crisis will be based on COVID-19 and that they live in one of these hardest hit zip codes. So we will be doing a one pager just to kind of go over that. But the Lawyers Committee for Better Housing has said that they would partner with that grant as well. So we'll have to, and the funds for that have to be spent by December, the end of December. So we're kind of going to look at pushing that, and it's zip codes all on the west side and all on the south side. Sure. So we know that it's truly hardest hit areas in Chicago. So that'll be great that we have that fund, and then individuals that might have evictions pending, that might have had something before the pandemic started, they can still apply. And they also relaxed the 2-year rule with the state. If before the pandemic, if they had received assistance within a 2-year period of time of applying, they weren't eligible, but they waived that. So they're strictly looking at the immediate crisis that's going on and how we can best serve individuals that are facing homelessness or in imminent danger of homelessness.
Got it. Thank you. And if you're watching on Facebook and you have any questions or any comments, please go ahead and put them into the comment section. I am monitoring them, so we can always ask whatever questions you have. And does CERA provide any additional supportive services, or is it just strictly rental assistance? And to that extent, state homeless prevention funds?
Right. So this is what is perhaps unique about us, right? We have attorneys who can do some things beyond that, but we are a group of social workers and some social work graduate students that I have working with me. And so we're doing an assessment and really, as Lynette alluded to earlier, addressing all of the underlying, if possible, issues, right? So connecting them mainly to resources. We do have some limitations on what we can do, right? We're not a center where we see people on a regular basis, but we can connect them, and that's an important piece, right? So if we understand that people exist in a number of dimensions where their lives might, present them as being at risk for, as it relates to nutrition or childcare or education or employment or mental health services, we want to try to address those things. That is our obligation and part of our sort of ethical standard as social workers. So we provide a lot of supportive services in that way.
And also, if I might add, our partner agencies are a network, and they're part of the continuum as well. So, we have agencies that are in the Hispanic community, and so in many cases, if Jude can't help them with something, and the Spanish Coalition might be able to help, he can make a referral directly to them, or Catholic Charities, or La Casa Norte, or Renaissance Social Services. So it's, we try to pick partners that complemented each other and would be able to network and provide resources other than always just Not that it's not needed, but throwing money at a situation. Sometimes that diversion piece is really all that's needed. The state will pay for utilities if it's to help stabilize the household, or if they're renting and they must have their utilities on, especially in the wintertime, in order to not be in violation of their lease. The state homeless prevention program will cover that as well. And mortgages, if they're in imminent risk of, losing their home and they're not in foreclosure, we can use the state funds to pay mortgages up to $5,000.
Definitely, thank you. And that's it's very important. It's an essential program that we're talking about here. It looks like I've ran through all the questions that I wanted to ask. I'm gonna give it a couple of seconds to see if any people watching on the live stream have any additional questions. But I do want to say thank you to both Lynette and Jude for taking the time of their day to answer and talk about court-based emergency rental assistance and state homeless prevention funds today with us.
No problem. Our pleasure.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Definitely. And looks like we're not getting any questions or comments. I do want to say, if you are watching this video post live stream, still please comment if you have any questions. I do monitor them. I'm on Facebook every day watching comments and any questions that may arise to the Tenant Thursday videos. If not, please check out our Tenant Thursday video series on our Facebook page at LCBH in the video tab. You can see the last 10 videos we've done every week, and they range from all topics regarding rents due to illegal lockouts. With that, we're on next Thursday at 6 p.m. on Facebook Live. Thanks for watching.